Okay, we're live?
Are we?
Yeah, I think we're live. Today's guest on the Special Chronicles podcast, we're speaking with Maria, who's an international studies major at Roosevelt University in Chicago. Welcome to the podcast, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
And it's taken us a while to get this set up, but
Yeah.
why don't we begin with an introduction about yourself? I usually say like 140 character tweet introduction, but just some sort of brief introduction about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Maria DiSabato. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I have an extraordinarily large family. I love art and traveling and having fun. I'm not very good at the whole introduction thing. I don't know where to go from there.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your family, your faith, and your disability.
My family, my faith, and
your disability.
Disability. Okay. Well, my family is rather large. I have 4 parents. I have a stepdad and a mom, a stepmom and a dad. They all get along pretty decently. I have I'm the youngest of 6, if you count my step siblings. I have about 48 first cousins, and I know all of them. I know all of my family by name, and I love it. Although they get chaotic, and half the time I kind of want to hit my head on the rock. I hit my head on something to get them away from me, but I couldn't live without them. My faith, I grew up Roman Catholic, but not necessarily very good at practicing it or following up on it. There's a number of things in the Catholic faith I have trouble with, and I know you can't be a cookie like a cafeteria kind of thing. And my disability, I am dyslexic. I found out I was dyslexic when I was in 2nd grade and have been kind of battling / living with it ever since.
Okay, good. So let's start with your early years. What was it like when you first found out about your disability? What's been that experience like? If you can.
Okay, yeah, I can. I remember
recall back.
Yeah, I remember them actually taking me out of class in 2nd grade, and I went with this man who had this white mustache and white hair, and I was scared of him kind of, and he had me read to him, and I was kind of really angry he pulled me out of class to read because I hated reading. It was hard and it hurt my head. I always had a headache. And after that, that reading, I sat there and read with him. They determined that I had dyslexia, and I was in 2nd grade. I had no idea what it was, and it didn't really dawn upon me what dyslexia truly was until about 7th grade. And I mean, before then it was kind of I would be frustrated with things and angry, but I never really understood my own severity in dyslexia, and then also just what it means to have a learning disability until 7th grade. And so around 7th grade is when I started getting angry about it and sad. But before then it was just kind of I have books and tape. It's not a big deal. You can kind of coast by it when you're a kid. When you get to be older in your adolescence, you're expected to do more things, especially with social media nowadays. People had MySpaces when I was in 7th grade, and I couldn't do MySpace because I couldn't read half the things on MySpace.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the beginning of it. I just wasn't really sure what it was until later, and then it was just the process of dealing with it. Mostly anger at first and sadness. I just get really sad about it.
Yeah.
But I realized can't really do that.
Yeah. So what are some tools that that your teachers had or that were able to help you and helped you throughout your classes?
Well, it wasn't. I went to a small Catholic school that I went to my whole life from pre-K basically to 8th grade. So all the teachers that knew me, because my parents also worked in the school. It's a very small knit community of Catholics who obviously they're there to support you and they're going to help me. So I had the support more than anything else, and the support made me okay with it in general, and also made me realize it didn't help. I don't know how to phrase it. That along with, I went to tutoring from 4th grade until when I graduated high school. So my tutor taught me a lot of tricks more than my teachers did. My teachers just taught me to be advocate for myself because they didn't know how to really deal with it. Yeah. So I had to be this is what I need, this and this. So I guess the biggest thing that I learned from all my teachers is knowing exactly what I need and not being afraid to be this is what I need, because it's not rude. I'm telling them I need this, and it's their job to help me.
Yeah.
It's like also looking at it as not necessarily feeling completely bad all the time for having a disability.
Yeah. Right. So let's transition into talking about the mood retarded,
Or what?
the term retarded.
Oh,
Retarded.
retard, yes.
And how and how you were affected by that word, because there's a lot of people, and I saw too that when that word was used a lot, probably when we were younger,
Yes.
and I mean even
And
still.
even nowadays,
Yeah.
it makes me cringe a little
Yeah.
more.
So go back to your early years and even maybe even through high school. What's been how have you been affected by by this one?
I don't think I have actually necessarily been affected as many other people I know who have a learning disability. I mean, it has come across, and I've had people call me that. But like when you're a little kid, no one really understands what the word retarded in the first place. They just hear older people using it as an insult, and thus they use it themselves. But I knew it was an insult when I was little, and like looking back on it now, it makes me upset knowing that I was called a retard when I was younger. Or in high school, no one really called me retarded either because it was a small knit community, and like no one really tolerated any kind of bullying like that. And the high school I went to, which is kind of half the reason I went to that high school in the first place. But I don't know, being a learning disability student, I understand like the perspective from us, what it means when you hear the word retarded. It like, yeah, there are people who are diagnosed as that, and I understand how most people look at the word retarded as not a big deal, but it's what the word brings about that it makes you feel ashamed for your learning disability. Like, at least for me, it makes me feel ashamed that I'm not quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
That's what retarded I don't like about it. It brings you down when it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's more of like what the word, like it's just like I know people who get mad when you don't want to censor it, and I'm not necessarily for going about saying the R word.
Yeah.
It's like you're putting that word in my head anyway. Just say retarded, don't say the R word. But I wish people were more aware of why it is offensive, and I don't understand why people have to defend to use the word retarded. I think it's a little childish that you have to defend that. You can't think of a better word? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Am I really the one who's that way then?
Yeah. So now that you're in college, have you not you, but have you heard anybody use the R word here on campus? So.
I hear people using the word retarded all the time, and it's not necessarily directed towards me or any learning disability student. It's just in general the word retarded is thrown out there, and I just think it's important that you become aware of there could be people around you who have been called retarded in the entire life, and it's kind of just a respect thing for other people. Like, there's no reason. Like, I know you don't mean it to harm me, but it still stings.
Yeah.
And like, no matter what, it stings because of the history and because of what that word actually means. And it makes you feel bad. You already feel bad enough for having a learning disability, and without having to be called anything.
Yeah.
I don't like when I hear, especially at Roosevelt, we're a social justice school, and how casually people use the word retarded is a little baffling, to say the least.
What do you think can be done either on this campus or even in society as a whole to change, to have, I guess, a more positive light on the world, or should we totally erase the world, or can you comment on that?
Well, I mean, you can't necessarily completely erase a word. It never goes away. Words are powerful no matter what they are or where you use them. I think it's just important that literally it's just education. It comes down to that. Many people have a lack of knowledge of just learning disabilities in general.
Yeah.
And they just assume, like, examples, I have had a couple teachers in college, my professors, that I have argued with that I have a learning disability.
Yeah.
And it offends me more than them thinking I'm stupid. Like, I'm complimented that they think I'm smart or something, so they question my disability. But the fact that they even have to question it, because they can tell I have a cognitive thought process, is offensive to the entire community I identify with.
Yeah.
So I just think it comes down to you need to educate people on the word. And I don't think getting rid of it's going to solve it, and I think getting rid of it will make people want to use it more, because people like to be rebellious and cool and not go with the status quo. It's just like, I just think it's education across the board for everyone, every American, every citizen of the world should just be aware of learning disabilities.
Yeah. now, speaking of education and how you said that people don't seem like they don't understand about LD. What do you think that we can do to change people's minds, or maybe not totally change people's minds, but what do you think we can do to let people know that it's not something that suffer from? Because like a lot of times, like I'm reading more and more people say that we might suffer from disability, which that's a big.
I agree with you. The word suffer, when I hear people saying suffer, or when people pity me for having a disability, it is probably the worst thing. It's not something you can pity, it's who I am. It has made me who I am. And I mean, yeah, I hate it half the time. And if dyslexic was a thing you could touch, I would smack it. But yeah. I wouldn't get rid of it for the world. And again, I just think it comes down to just making people aware of it. I'm sorry, I forgot the beginning question. I got out of my thought process there.
about saying suffering from disability.
Oh yeah, suffering. Again, education. You just gotta let people know what it actually truly means to be a dyslexic, or not just dyslexic, just someone with an LD in general. Like, an example, my mom didn't really understand what an LD was until she had me, and she started incorporating books and tape into her library now, and it's not for people who have LD, but children who are slower at reading, who are just naturally slower at reading. It's just the term suffering makes it seem that we hate it and that there's nothing we can do about it, but it's again has made us who we are. And everyone I've ever met with a learning disability are probably some of the strongest people I've ever met in my entire life. It's not a suffering at all. No. I don't like the negative connotation that suffering brings.
Yeah. Same here, and I've been hearing more and more in different articles that I read, and it really frustrates me as well. Yeah,
I remember some of my friends were talking about how eventually in the future there might be a way to get rid of learning disabilities in general, mapping the brain out to figure that out. And I was I was so taken aback. I was like, I would never change that. And they didn't understand why I would. And I was like, the struggle of having a disability keeps me humble, and I need that humility. I need that humbleness to make me a better person. Yeah. And so I have it every day to constantly remind me. If I don't have it every day to constantly remind me, I'm just going to get wrapped up in my own world, and that's not okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned about how you use a lot of books on tape.
Yeah.
Tape, I don't know. Wait, tape anymore?
I call them books on tape, but
no, I know.
Yeah, just having things read to me, whether it's the computer or an app or something. Yeah. I use a lot of books on tape. Yeah. I've always used them. I love them to death. Yeah. I can't get over them.
Yeah. Same here.
I still have a cassette player. Or books on tape. I have collections of books on tape. And then books on CD, and then books on iTunes. Yeah. So speaking of books on tape as a generic term, I guess. Yeah.
What are some services or apps, or what are some services that help to provide you books on tape?
Okay. Well, Learning Alley is really good for just downloading books in general. Obviously, at least my library, Columbus Metropolitan Library, is a phenomenal library. It has a wonderful collection of books on tape. My mom, being a librarian, can help me find books. Obviously, everything's kind of on the web if you look hard enough. Yeah. And my Macintosh can read to me. So if it's a PDF file, for half my classes, I just highlight it and press 2 keys, and it reads to me. And I actually kind of prefer the computer voice over everything else now. Yeah. I'm so used to the computer voice.
Yeah. I just discovered I think a couple months ago that at least on the new operating system, that on the Mac, if you right-click, you can go and add iTunes, or add spoken text to iTunes, and it'll create an entire text.
That's awesome.
I can show you after the.
You should do that. I would appreciate it. Yeah. My reading level is about 5th grade, and my spelling is 2nd. I should put that out there. It's it's a pretty severe dyslexia I have. It's not dyslexia is a very broad term with a lot of different levels of it, but mine's pretty severe, I'd say. I mean, I could be bragging. I'm not bragging. I could be I'm not exaggerating. It's 2nd grade spelling and 5th grade reading. So I consider that severe for being 21.
Yeah. So now, have you been able to find a lot of books on tape, either for your classes or pretty much for your classes, but also just books for fun. Have you been able to find all of them on tape?
No, unfortunately, not every book is on tape, which I think is a shame personally.
Yeah.
I'm probably biased on that idea. I love books on tape, and so I'm always looking for them. I like to read. The only reason I would give up dyslexia is just so I could sit in the park with a book and read it. But I have graphic novels for that, and I love graphic novels. But most of the time, most books are on tape, I find nowadays, but textbooks not really. And so it does make it harder to read my textbooks. I'm like limited in my ability, like my time in which I can read, because at school's only open from like 9 to 6, and 9 to 6 is when I try to be here. Oh, sorry, excuse me, a good portion of the time, so I can get read to. But like the things I'm reading for international studies are pretty like dense, like academic journals and like the most ridiculous things, and the authors are always trying to like outsmart one another with long, elaborate sentences that are actually paragraphs, and they. I really don't like the way they write, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have someone sit down and read it to you. It's like a 2-hour thing for like 20 pages. And I mean, granted, there's people who pay to do it, but they also have limited time which they can do it. So sometimes I wish that everything was on tape just so I could keep up with school, and it was more on my own time. I'm so restricted to school time in a way that I see that my peers aren't in college, and that does bring me down sometimes, I would say.
All right. We'll touch on time in just a moment. Today on the Let's Go podcast, speaking with Maria. And we'll be back after this quick break. And I'll do something with that later.
Okay, so you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
So we're back, and we're speaking with Maria. DiSabato. It's hard.
It's an Italian last name, pretty hard to pronounce. No one gets it.
We're discussing on disability, and just before the break, I think we said
time was school.
Time, yeah,
school.
Yeah, school and time. So now, how have you been able to manage your time? And
have I been able to manage my time? I haven't. I'm not good. Yeah. Will do.
Yeah. Okay. So now, how have you been able to manage your time?
I really haven't. I am terrible at time management. On top of everything else, I have a very bad habit of living way too much in the moment to the point where I don't really pay attention to time. It's not necessarily a good thing in many ways. Well, I mean, I can't necessarily help it. I mean, that's a lie. I can totally help it. I'm just lazy about it.
Do you think does that have anything to do with your LD? Or?
I don't want to blame that on my LD. Like, I could blame it on my ADHD, but like at the same time, if I just took my medicine regularly, it'd probably be different. But I have a completely different notion on taking the medicine for ADHD personally, my own thing. Like, anyone else do what you want. Just my own personal things are just a little weird about that. I don't want to blame it on dyslexia.
Yeah.
That's such a cop out. I don't. The one thing that would drive me crazy about the learning disability community, there are people I know who do kind of use it as a cop out, and I can't respect you if you necessarily do it. Like, granted, I use it as a cop out every once in a while, or I'll make cracks about it to my friends, and I think they'll assume I'm making a cop out. It's for just me kind of dealing with dyslexia and constantly having to remind them, because I feel like a lot of times my friends don't actually remember I'm dyslexic, and it does frustrate me that they don't. Like, I don't want them to treat me like poorly because of my learning disability, but I want them to at least completely remember it because it is me. I don't think they always get that. But no, I don't blame my learning disability. Yeah. Again, I digress. I do that very often.
So now, were you diagnosed with both LD and ADHD at a young age, or?
I was diagnosed with ADHD about 7th grade, and that's when they started putting me on Stratera. And I've been supposed to be taking Stratera ever since. And I was really good about it until about junior year, and then I was like, I'm going to not really take it all that often.
Yeah.
So I've only been taking it for like 4 years now. But yeah, I take it every once in a while.
All right. So let's move on and talk a little bit about language and how it affects people with disabilities. Can you comment on that? And we mentioned earlier about the term suffering from disability and the R word, but overall, can you comment on language and with abilities on
Yeah.
the terms that are used? And
I just find that a lot of the terms that are used for learning disabilities comes from people who clearly don't necessarily have any knowledge on learning disabilities, and thus they don't have any respect for people with learning disabilities. It's like, I don't want to make them feel bad, and I don't want to make them I don't want to anger or insult them. It's just, I know it's just a lack of knowledge. That's clearly what it is. It's easy to solve. Just educate. I would just say, I don't want the language to offend me, because people, the saying goes, like, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I mean, that's not true. Like, bones heal, and sometimes words hurt more than anything else. And I just personally, I've tried to not let the words bring me down, but there's only so much you can take at a time. There's sometimes when it's just like being so poured on top of you about everything, you just kind of break down, and it's just a word, but it's just the last word you ever want to hear.
Yeah. So let's move into now our college and when you were getting ready. Before we get quickly in that, were you in a lot of classes growing up in school, or did you have any IEP meetings, or can you touch on that?
Special need classes, I would say no. Again, my middle school, my experience before high school was like I was at the same school, same community. Everyone there knew me and was aware of it. I was a Catholic school, about 30 people in my grade, like the same people. We just went grade to grade, and the only thing I would do was get pulled out for tutoring, and that was about it. And I hated tutoring. I would like purposely try not to go to that. I was bad. That, and then my high school, I went to an alternative high school called the Grand School in Columbus, Ohio, which I absolutely love and I'll always will advocate for. It's a charter school, and the point of that school is it's not focusing on it doesn't emphasize classroom experience. It emphasizes outside the classroom experience for gaining knowledge. So like we have classes like 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week we didn't have classes. We would volunteer around the city. That in itself was really nice. I never had the experience of having to go and be with just specifically learning disability students. And I honestly, personally think that is half the reason I have so much academic confidence, and I'm not afraid to be in class and speak up, is because I've always been in a classroom with people who don't have a learning disability. But like talking to people who have been separated, they don't have as much confidence because it's like they already kind of automatically assume because it's special needs, like the term special needs is kind of backhanded.
Yeah.
It's meant to be nice and PC, but it's just kind of condescending in a way. Again, no one's fault. It just is. It's just, at least how I interpret it, it's kind of condescending. And I'm really happy. I'm so glad I never was really in any of those classes, because I don't think that they in the end help. I can see where they help for some, but I think it's important that not just for learning disability students, but for the people in the classrooms who aren't learning disability, to know what it's like to be with someone who's learning disability and talk to them and engage in them and see that it's not that big of a deal and it's not that different. So I haven't really had any experiences with it, and I'm glad.
Okay.
Again, to emphasize that.
All right, good. And so now, coming here, or did you go to a different school? Did you come here, or can you talk about that whole process of applying and then college and then coming here?
My first college I went to, Roosevelt's my second one, it was Muscatine University in New Concord, Ohio, and I really didn't like that at all. It was just, I needed a city. It was mostly the setting. I was part of the PLUS program there, which is an extremely intense program for people with learning disabilities.
It's okay.
Got very distracted.
Yeah, I know.
ADHD, right?
So today we're speaking with Maria. Just because I have to put in the break, but today we're speaking with Maria DiSabato about whole LD and ADHD, and we just commented on ADHD.
Yeah, I'm very easily distracted. So I went to Muskegon University, and the reason I didn't like that is because I felt smothered. They were constantly telling me how to do this, this, and this, and this, and like I can see how it's meant for some who are really, really need that kind of structure. I just can't ever really do anything in that kind of structure. So I wanted something that was just as strong, kind of like advocating for people with disabilities and helping them, but let me kind of do it my way.
Yep.
And so I Googled schools for dyslexics and then kind of narrowed it down by where I wanted to go city-wise. And then I saw Roosevelt was on the list, and I looked into Roosevelt, and I saw it had a really good learning disability program. And then I absolutely fell in love with the school from like its social justice aspects. And then I learned the history of Roosevelt, and like a school that started like that has to be a school that it's literally living. It started because of what it believed in, and it's progressed into this thing where like we are so proud of our history, and I like that because our history is pretty awesome.
Awesome. And
yeah.
So now, what type of support services have you had come to here, and how has that been different from the first college that you had?
The first college you had like every week you had like an hour tutoring for each class, so it's like a mandatory tutoring, and like most of the tutors there, instead of like helping, like what I mostly need is I just need someone to read to me and spell, and everything else they can do. But they were just like, they wanted to do every little thing. Like they wanted to teach me studying tactics, and they wanted to teach me how to organize for school. And I'm like, the reason I'm in college is because I did those things in high school.
Yeah.
Like I worked my way there. I know how to do it. You can't like hold my hand through it. You have to let me do it my own. And like I felt like they also, personally, like seeing some of the students abuse that, and like must game kind of annoyed me. Like you're slacking. You make it so much easier on yourself than it needs to be. And what I loved about Roosevelt is like they have all these things. I can go get tutoring if I wanted, but it's my call. And I have an office to go to, but I'm not mandatory to be there. I'm not going to be punished, or not punished, but like I'm not going to get lectured out for not going. And I'm in college. I'm supposed to experience my own like things. I'm supposed to learn how to be responsible for once. And Roosevelt I like because it's letting me be responsible on my own. Muskegon I didn't like because it was trying to teach me how to be responsible by its terms, and responsibility is its own, like each of its own terms.
Good. Good. So now, do you see that either both in classes and just on the street? Do you see that people see you with having a disability, or what? And one of the things that I think they actually told me this last year, that there was a visible disability and an invisible disability. So like LOD that we both have is an invisible disability. So let's first touch on if people see you with having a disability, or can you comment on all that?
I always have to tell people I'm dyslexic. No one really assumes it. Even when I'm reading, they're kind of just like, what is this girl doing? Why can't she read? So I always have to tell people. And I know I've never been a big, that's always my least favorite thing when I first meet people is telling them I'm dyslexic. Because it's like, I get 3 reactions, 3 standard faces. And I can't stand all of them. I get a pity face, a disgusted look like I'm going to like give them dyslexia with this disease. And then the last face is probably the worst, just an utter shock. And then the response immediately is, you seem so smart. Okay, why am I no longer seeming smart to you because I can't read? Like, again, lack of understanding about what reading is and what it can. Sorry, I got very caught up in my emotions right there. I hate telling people I'm dyslexic just because of the 3 main responses. And those 3 main responses happen because people are unaware about disabilities, because they assume if it's a disability you can see it and it's visible. And I feel like I look like a normal 21-year-old. I don't look like someone who has a learning disability. And I don't really necessarily act like one all the time. So yeah, a lot of people are shocked, or they think I'm lying.
Yeah.
I've had professors not believe me.
Yeah. Same. And
it's really annoying, right?
Yeah.
Just like, why would I lie about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how do you think we could change people to not have, as you said, those 3 different faces, like you can catch, like if someone says, "Oh, I'm afraid to talk to you because I could cut your teeth." What do you think we could do to change that?
Social awareness, like with any minority group or any group that feels like it's not necessarily getting the respect it deserves in society. You just need to make people aware of it. It's literally awareness. That's the main thing, is making people understand it and awareness. And half of that problem will be solved if through the education system, which is understanding that everyone learns in this rudimentary way, and it's not like sit down, do your homework, and like go to bed. It's not like that for people. There's different ways of learning, and that's why it's fun. That's why learning is awesome. It's like there's so many different ways to get this one knowledge into someone's brain, and like if the best teachers figure out how to do it, and for everyone. And again, I think that keeping LD students in the classroom itself is very significant and important because it teaches kids over time that it's there. It teaches the quote-unquote normal kids. Kids without learning disabilities, they learn that someone with learning disability is just as capable, if not more than they are. They just need a little extra help. Yeah,
good. And we touched briefly before about language, and there's a big thing with people forced language. And I've been seeing more and more of this in articles that about me where like, they say disabled, and then I'm posted not disabled American. So even non-disabled, and then posting. What's some of your thoughts about people posting? So like saying a person with LD or person with a disability instead of someone like saying that this is a disabled person or a LD person, of having the person of saying person first and then with disability second.
After.
What?
So you're saying like you want to know what I think of the significance between like saying the person first as opposed to saying the disability first.
Yes. So that way, like, then they can see that your disability is just something that you're just diagnosed with, or it's just something that's in the background.
Well, actually, I never thought of it like that. I'm putting one in front of the other just because it's like the way you structure the language. What I love about language is the way you structure a sentence literally will change everything about it, even if you use the same word. I don't know, because I think emphasizing I'm a person is extremely important, but I also want to emphasize that I am this person because of my disability. So I guess I would just say I'm Maria DiSabato, I'm dyslexic, instead of dyslexic Maria DiSabato. I think it is more significant and more important to put the name and the person out there first.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it's very equally as important to make sure people are aware of your disability. And it may make them uncomfortable when you tell them, and they might be like, jump to conclusions as to why you're telling them. And in the end, I learned to not care. Well, I still do, actually, that's a lie. There are times I really do care. And it's not that person, it's just the mood I'm in that day and like how much I've had to deal with my dyslexia that day will, determine my caringness on the matter. But I'm going to emphasize, I think it's very important to include when you meet new people what you are, which is, to me, I am dyslexic.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of proud of it.
Right. Good. And a lot of people say that in their disability they have overcome adversity. How do you say that you have overcome adversity having disability?
I think I'm still recovering it every day, and I don't think I'm going to stop recovering it until I die. But that in itself is why I like it so much. It's a constant battle. And I look at the world the way I do because of it. I'm really hesitant to jump to conclusions about people before I really get to know them because I don't want people to do that to me. And I've had people do that to me too much in my life for me to want to do that to anyone else, kind of thing. So mainly it's something I'm always going to have and always going to battle. And the hardest thing for me to do, I guess, was coming to terms with that ongoing battle that will never end.
Okay. Now, we have, as you know, a lot of listeners, and some people may either have disability or some people may not. What advice do you have for either if there's a listener out there who also has LD like us, or people with other disability, or even someone who may even be a parent of somebody with disability? What advice do you have for people with disabilities or LD?
I think my biggest advice was don't let the sadness overwhelm you, because it is sad in a way. Acknowledge the sadness, embrace the sadness, be okay with the sadness, but don't let it overwhelm you. Especially like with parents. parents, I don't understand how my parents have done it with me. And I've had amazing parents, and I've had 4 amazing parents, and I'm extremely lucky and kind of very lucky in that regard. I just think that don't let it get you down. Yeah, like it will make you sad, and it's going to suck, and you're going to meet a lot of people who are jerks and who just clearly don't understand anything and have one like square way of looking at the world. But you learn like those kind of people kind of suck, and they're going to follow you. And just don't be sad about it. Like, don't be ashamed of yourself for being sad, and don't beat yourself up for being sad. And yeah, every once in a while, like every 6 months or something, sit down and take like a good 2-hour cry about it. But don't let it bring you down, because you have a life to live, and you might just have a little extra struggle, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And briefly, do you have any resources that you would like to recommend for people with LD? We mentioned earlier some focus on tape resources, but overall for LD, do you have any
sources I use?
Yeah, any resources?
One thing I really like, especially with like modern technologies, and dictation software I can use. Especially, I use that for my papers, and I use that if I have to write a long Facebook comment back to someone. I will put that on, and I'll speak, and it's made my speaking ability a lot better than it used to be. So that in itself, I think that getting like a dictation software is extremely important. Getting the technology that can read you, because I know like Siri can read you text and everything, and I don't want to sit here and advocate for Mac, but I have a lot of Mac products, and I love them because Mac does read to you, and it is pretty like awesome. Books and tape were key, personally, and for my news, like I get all my news, I get a lot of my news from like things like PBS or like NPR, because it's like news that I have apps on my phone for.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite things, because I don't sit down and read the paper ever. I listen to the news constantly.
Yeah.
You know, like I watch videos on the news. So the internet is my favorite thing, because it opens my world so much more than it would have done 10 years ago.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there's a lot of software like on the computer, like with the dictation. Is there any accessible resources, or have you been able to use a lot of those same ones on your phone?
On my phone, I don't really use Siri on my phone, because every time I do, Siri makes me angry because she just doesn't get it. I don't know. I know that you can type out text with like the dictation software on your phone now, and I use that a lot. That's convenient. Same with emails. If you don't open up your text messages or emails, Siri will read you all of them. But I kind of want Mac to make it so I can just click on one and be like, read this one to me instead of reading all of them. But I'm not going to complain about awesome technology.
All right. I just selected one text, and do you get an option like where you can have it
speak? I haven't tried that, but I think that.
But apparently the volume was not up on you. Volume up and see if it will speak this one. You.
Oh, I didn't even know I could do that. I probably have that on my phone, and I didn't even know it.
Let's try select this.
Final thoughts.
So,
what are my final thoughts?
Speaking of final thoughts, we'll use this as accessible.
Nancy has a final thought.
Oh, you have a final thought?
Nancy is someone I couldn't live without personally. What?
Can you delete this if we decided to be deleted?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the camera.
Not on the camera. So I heard a great story today. One of our students was in a class. He's been in the class all semester. He might, to the outside world, seem a little different, quirky, whatever. And another student who also works in here, sometimes she helps him out, tells him, keeps him, making sure. And another classmate came up to her today and said, you know what? He's really, really smart, and he has totally changed the way I think about people with disabilities. That's my final thought.
Right.
I like Nancy's final thought. Again, because he was in the classroom with this girl, Nancy's final thought kind of goes with what I've been saying all along. It's just making people aware. That girl became more aware because she was in the classroom with learning disability students, and then she was challenging her stereotypical typical way of thinking of how people should learn. My final thought, I would say, has to be, I just really want people just become aware. I get tired of having to constantly educate people. So it'd be nice if people were constantly educated, like not on their own, but just in general. It would be wonderful if that happened. It would make my life, plus every someone with a learning disability, 10 times easier. Because half the struggle is just seeing people trying to comprehend people's, just because you don't understand their way or you can't read doesn't mean you're not smart. It's just so weird that we judge people's smartness on the ability to read, because that is so untrue. Reading is something humans invented themselves. Intelligence is not inventing, it is.
Yeah. Awesome. So, thank you once again for taking time to come on.
Yeah, finally.
Finally. And look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed this.